Hello, everyone. This is Jaime Jo Wright here at Madlet Musings, and I'm excited today because I have with me Julie Klassen of Bethany House Publishers, the Regency Queen. Welcome.
Welcome. I thank you. I do have a tiara, but I did not wear it since
That's
you
okay.
couldn't see it. But
I should have asked you to come in full Regency costume because I know you rock those.
I did, but sadly, someone has gained lots of weight over the last few
Uh,
years, so not currently. Not
oh
currently
well,
be able to.
that's what
We'll blame it
happens with
on
tea time. Too many tea times.
too many tea times.
That's okay.
Yes,
It's all right.
we'll go with that. Too many scones. Right.
Yes, yes, and I'm trying to think of what else they serve because I know nothing.
Oh, come, all the
I'm
tea
thinking
things.
I'm thinking like lemon curd. That would be one,
Sure.
right? They would serve lemon. There's one I'm trying to think of too that somebody just mentioned the other day, and I'm like, I've never had that. I'm trying to think
Like
what it was.
Devon cream or
That's what it
something.
was. It was
Okay.
Devon cream. I don't even know what that is.
It's like a super thick whipped cream, but not very sweet.
Oh,
Almost like butter.
ooh,
I mean, like whipped butter
that sounds delicious.
with
But
some jam. Ooh, that's very good.
ooh, okay. Time for tea, everybody. Time for
Yes.
tea. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I'm excited to have you here. And this is the time that I need to come out and confess on the air that I am a closet Regency reader. Like that's my go-to genre. I don't think people realize this about me, but
No, that is a surprise
yeah,
to those of us who get a little scared by your
yeah,
books because
I
you
know.
you
I know.
pretend at least to not like, romance and
I do. And honestly, it's weird. So here's the thing, and I haven't quite figured this out about myself.
okay.
I really am not a huge romance reader, but there's something about Regency that is so completely removed from anything I write, but it's also so enticing. I'm not sure what it is. Because there's romance in your books, but it's not like oohing and gooing off the edges of the pages either. And then my daughter goes the other day, because I was reading your book, A Winter by the Sea, which is what we're here to talk about. She goes, Mom, what's the book about? I'm like, I have no idea. And she goes, what do you mean? You're three-quarters of the way through. I'm like, it's about life by the sea with tea and royalty.
Oh, where were you when I needed a tagline, Jamie?
She's like, but what's the plot? And I'm like, life. That's the plot. It's just life in a quiet town. And I like it.
Okay, you're not selling very many books for me here,
No,
Jamie.
no,
Quiet
no,
Life
no.
by the Sea.
Hey, that should sell a
With
lot of books this day
royalty.
and
Oh, I
age.
like that.
Yeah. Life by the
Okay.
sea with tea and
Royalty.
royalty.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. I think it sells because I think that's one of the reasons I gravitate toward it because life is so chaotic. And there's something so beautiful about the Regency simplicity, but I'm probably simplifying it too much.
Well, you're making me think of a couple things. One, yes,
Okay.
in this particular series, I'm hearing that a lot. Like, life is hectic. I like this series because it is a slower pace. You've got, the family drama. Yeah, there is romance and there's a
Yeah.
little
Oh,
bit of
yeah.
mystery and there's a little danger, but it is a very gentle story. Um, Happy endings, that sort of thing. So I do get that for hearing that a lot for this series in particular. And, like you, I was drawn to the Regency era, long before I ever wrote it. Because, yeah, there is something about it. The romance is, in general, more, sweet. And,
Yeah.
there's all these social kind of mores that keep it, about chivalry and about ladylike behavior. So things don't get too, hot and steamy and all of that. It's more sweet
Right.
and love is bigger than just the physical attraction. Of course,
Right.
that's there.
Right.
But the more research you do, I know now that it's not all romantic, and I no
Right.
longer say I was born in the wrong time because heaven
Mhm.
forbid you should have to deal with those medical practices and lack of
Right.
hygiene and all of the rest of it. But
Right.
if you had money, it could be a romantic time. But
I was actually thinking about that when I was reading A Winter by the Sea because you have a character in there who's of royal lineage who is suffering. And some of the treatments that guy was enduring, I'm like, I suddenly am in love with modern medical health care.
Exactly. We forget about some of that. I
Yes,
do love
yes.
that, and even though I'm writing fiction, I
Uh-huh,
love that basing things on historical
yeah,
fact and practices, and of course taking leeways and noting uh, those times where I veer
right,
from history in the
yeah,
author's note. But
yeah,
I do enjoy the history in with all the romance and
yes,
the
yes.
rest of it.
Well, and I love this series, so I know I kind of made it sound slow, but I didn't mean to make it sound dull. Slow and dull are two entirely different things. And I've been enjoying this series because this is the second and the first one. I apologize, I forgot the title of the first one.
The Sisters
Sisters,
of Seaview.
the Sisters of Sea that's right. And then this is A Winter by the Sea. And so you have a family of ladies basically with no
Yeah,
patriarch any longer. And this is a mother and the sisters that are running a boarding house now,
correct.
and it's all about their different lives. And we have one sister who that's kind of the mystery that's threading through all the stories is what happened to Claire, the
Right, the sister
sister.
that we don't see, and we know
Mm-hmm.
she was sent off
Mm-hmm.
in disgrace. I think that's not a spoiler at this
Right.
point,
No, no, it's
but we're
not.
not sure everything that happened. I mean, it's becoming
Right.
more obvious, but
Yeah.
yeah. So not everything is not a bed of roses for this family who has fallen on hard times in more ways than one.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I do like to have a little bit of mystery or question marks in
Right.
there. Not like a whodunit in this case, but
Right.
not
Yeah.
like you, Jamie. But yeah, I do like to have. Do like to make people wonder a little bit,
Oh
keep them
yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. Well, the characters that keep getting introduced to us are so much fun too because we have I'm not going to remember the names. I'm horrible with names, but we have the character who lives with them, who has the parrot, which is no longer a live parrot, but a parrot. And I have to say, he's probably my favorite character.
That doesn't surprise me, Jamie.
It's so odd and strange. And then when I opened up A Winter by the Sea and saw that you'd continued with his character and even embellished on it, which I won't go into too much detail because I don't want readers to find out yet, but you kind of embellished on his own little parrot adventure. I was like, oh, I love him so
Isn't
much.
that fun as authors? We, get to, I don't know. Don't ask me where that character came from. I don't know because, we have some
Okay,
quirky brains between us, I
right,
think, as
right,
writers. I
right.
don't know where he came from. But yeah, I really started to like him, even though he is an odd duck.
Yeah.
Especially when he first comes, and you think that he thinks this thing is alive. But then I
Hmm.
love that where because that's how I am as a person. I'm the world's worst. If I get a first impression of somebody, it's probably wrong. And I know that about myself. So I try not to form those, but as humans, we want to do that. We
Right.
want to make those snap decisions.
Yeah.
That person's weird, that person's trouble, whatever it
Yep.
is.
Yep.
And then I love to like reveal slowly why someone is the way they are, and
Yeah.
see the heart behind the quirkiness. And I love to redeem or curmudgeon and all those kinds of things that
Oh,
I think as
exactly.
as believers we like to see the redemption and
Right. Right.
the good in people that's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Well, and you have kind of a neat story. Again, I want to be careful I don't throw too many spoilers out there, but I think if people understand the array of the cast of this book, it makes you want to read the book in and of itself. Because you have a character who has his own little redemption story going on through the book, but I was like, what was this really a thing? Like he literally was his sole job was to take care of dishes and
The
set the
keeper of the
table.
plate, yeah, the
And I'm
royal
like, I
keeper
knew
of the
you well
plate.
enough to know this has got to be a real thing. Like this can't be something. I mean, it has to be something from the Regency era,
Yeah.
right?
And I do think it's primarily in a royal household. I haven't
Okay.
come across keepers of the plate
Right.
in just
Okay.
your average earl doesn't necessarily have one, from what
I
I
was
know.
wondering. I'm like, wow, I
I
want
could be
one.
wrong on that, but it was fun to look up you can history. There's so much, especially in the royal family. You can go back
Yeah.
and look to see who was on the Duke of Kent's staff, and you get a whole list from when they started, when they ended, who traveled with
Yeah.
him. So some of those details, about traveling with keeper of the plate, or
Hmm.
him having private secretaries with him, and all these other things are they're part of the record. Now, I fictionalize these
Right.
people.
Right.
I'm not trying to write an actual biography of any of those people, but
Right.
it was fun to start with some
Yeah.
who was traveling with him besides the
Yeah.
obvious,
Yeah.
and who would be fun to to send over to the guest house, which, when I learned that, that the Duke and Duchess of Kent and their
Okay.
daughter, the future Queen Victoria,
Hmm.
I'd like to say I was smart enough that I had this whole series planned out, but I didn't. So it was during my research for my first book that I realized that they came to Sidmouth, the town where
Okay.
my series is set, the
Right.
same year that I had set the first book. I'm like, well, I have to include them.
Yeah.
And they rented the house that is down the same lane as my fictional house. There's a map at the beginning of
Oh,
the book.
yeah.
So you could,
Yeah.
that's where they stayed. So I thought, and here I have this fictional guest house on the same lane. And sure enough, they arrived with too many people. They had this big entourage, so too
Okay.
many people to fit in the house they rented. So they did send some to lodge elsewhere. Now, not at my fictional sea view, of course, but
Right.
it
Right.
was
But
fun to pick a few to send to my house
yeah,
and have them stay with the sisters.
that's interesting because I was going to ask, I was debating on asking how much of that was actual historical fact that they had actually come to that area or how much was, so that's kind of cool. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah,
realize that
he was
actually happened.
deeply in debt, so they said, "You should leave London, it's too expensive to live here, and go to the West
Wow.
Country." And
Yeah.
so some of his advisors, like
Okay.
John Conroy, who was a real person,
Okay.
watched Victoria, that miniseries, you might be familiar with him. He was not
Hmm.
a nice guy, really. So it's fun
Yeah.
to write a not nice character,
Yeah.
because he did travel with them. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so having that, the fact that they really lived there. They were planning to spend the whole winter, but because of
Okay.
some of those kind of calamities that they didn't foresee,
Right.
they didn't stay as long as they planned to, but they were there. So it was
Wow.
fun,
That's so cool. That's so cool.
fun to write that. And we even have some firsthand accounts from residents of Sidmouth who, saw them, or we know who made her first pair of shoes,
Oh,
Victoria's first pair of
wow.
shoes. And we have some people who went to an evening party who wrote about it. And
Okay.
because I've become acquainted with some of the people who work in the Sidmouth Museum, they've been able to provide me all kinds of, behind the scenes kind of accounts. And
Yeah.
so that's been really fun to have.
That's cool.
So yeah, most of that about the royal couple was true.
Was true. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's what I was kind of wondering. In fact, I was starting to get ready to actually do my own research, which I may still do because it's just fun to find these little nuggets of history that you hear about the royal family and you hear about
Mhm.
the big things, right? But these are like the little side stories that don't
Right.
necessarily make it onto a general history book.
Yeah. I
Well,
found that
that's
interesting
cool.
too, because of course we hear about the top dogs. You hear
Right,
that's not
right.
a very good analogy, but you hear about the
No, I get
king
it.
or you hear about Queen Victoria. But yeah, King George had four sons, and so you don't
Right.
necessarily hear as much about the ones that are further down the line. So yeah,
Down
it
the
was
line.
kind of
Yeah.
fun to
Yeah. That's cool.
research. I learned a lot too.
That's
I'm
really
not a
interesting.
royal expert by any stretch. I don't usually write about
I
royalty,
was gonna
so
say you don't typically
this
go
was
into the
different,
royal. Okay.
different for
All right.
me.
It's one of those things where history was like, here, let me hand it to you on a royal platter and include
Exactly.
it in your book.
Royal platter, that's a good one. I just have to say, I just had my official book launch party
Uh-huh.
last week, and I made everybody wear crowns,
Oh,
and
good.
they're all kind of like, "Oh, what's this about, Julie?" And they were good sports, but yeah, because I have never written about royalty before, and I
Yeah.
probably never will again. So I
Yeah.
wanted to mark the occasion, and it was like a party, so it was fun.
Yes.
It was fun to do anyway. But
That's good. That's good.
our brush
I
with
did like the
royalty.
romantic theme through the book. In fact, you kind of threw in some, I don't know if you intended this, maybe it's my sadistic brain, but I felt like there were some red herrings for romance possibilities because there was the obvious. There was kind of a past love and then a potential new love. But then even when the book was starting, I'm kind of like, oh, but she could end up with him or maybe about And so I don't know if you do that on purpose or if I'm
Well,
just
I
like
mean, I'm not sure which one you're
nosy.
thinking. If you're thinking of the, Emily, who's kind of the main character
Yes.
of this story, she kind of
Yes.
has her couple different options. But then I also, yeah, I did kind of have Sarah has her own
Right.
subplot with someone you may have thought, might
Right.
have been a romantic possibility,
Yeah.
that was a fun subplot to write, just because it was, that was the chef that stayed in the house, and that
Yeah,
was
that
fun
one I
to
was
write.
a part of me was kind of like, oh, I kind of like him. And then I was like, oh, maybe it won't turn out. Oh, I don't know. So I was kind
Yeah.
of going back and forth with that one. But with Emily, I was kind of like, there's two bookish men in her world that are kind of vying.
Oh
And
yeah,
those
that's
were the
right.
other two that I was like,
The
she
publishers as
the
well. Yeah.
publishers, right. And I was like, they can end up coming out, especially since you have the one like shirtless coming out of the water or something. I can't look with a towel wrap. That had to have been extremely scandalous back then. I was reading it, I'm like,
I think
Julie,
I watched
fanning,
Sanditon, yeah, too many times or something. That
fanning my face. Oh,
well, those Brits, they sea bathe year round, and
do they
they
really?
still do that, and because it was not to the degree they did then, but it was
Right.
was known to be so good for you health wise back then.
Oh,
Doctors wrote about it. People, went in the water year round. They drank seawater. So yeah,
ugh,
there were a lot more people in the water then at these seaside resorts than there are now.
that's
Oh
funny.
yeah, and you're talking about a character, the rival publisher, and
Yes.
he's a real character from history too.
Oh, is he
Uh,
really?
yes, this Sidmouth is not that big of a town, but there were two publishers who both own circulating libraries
Interesting.
in this town. And so when I actually read a little bit about this rivalry. And since Emily, who's kind of the main character of this one,
Right.
she's a huge, reader,
Right.
wants to be a writer, aspiring writer. Um, so that was for me really fun to be able to work it's probably a fairly small part of the story, but the subplot of the rivalry that she kind of gets involved with.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, just before we started our call, I addressed a mailing envelope to a woman who I'm sending the book to, and she's a descendant of the rival publisher. And so I'm kind of wondering what she's going to think about my portrayal. Great, whatever.
Oh my goodness.
Because I ended up liking him, but he's definitely
Yeah.
kind of a flamboyant,
Oh yeah.
character, a little bit. You're
Yeah.
not quite sure how to take him at first. And I think
Right.
by the end, people come to care for him a little bit. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I did. I
so we'll
did.
see what his descendant thinks here when
That'll be interesting.
she gets the
Yeah,
book.
that'll be interesting. I love that. I love that. And that's the thing with your fiction too that's fun is because there's so much history wrapped up in it as a reader, you get lost in what's fact and what's fiction. And then
Mm.
you force us to go look and figure it out. Like we have to actually read history now. That's
Well, you
smart.
don't have to. I'll give you a pass.
Oh, okay.
But, and it is interesting because that's like you said, the gift on the royal platter, because that's,
Yeah.
I don't normally, my books are not normally that tied into that many specific events and historical
Yeah.
characters. And in fact, I have a rough draft for book 3, and it's far lighter on the actual historical events, just
Okay.
because, the royals were gone and other things in that time period. There weren't any big,
Yeah.
big events, and
Yeah.
I've got other characters to
Mm-hmm.
develop. So it's going to be a different read, but hopefully still
Okay.
satisfying.
Yes. Can I ask what sister is going to be kind of highlighted in the next one?
You may. So you already mentioned her name,
Okay.
Claire.
It is
So
Claire's story.
Claire, who's
Okay.
been basically off the page, but we've heard about the sisters
Mm-hmm.
wondering about her and missing her. Claire comes back to town. So it's called the Seaside Homecoming.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's book 3, and I mean I have a rough draft and many, as you know, many rounds of
Oh, right.
corrections and edits and additions and all of that to come. But at
Mm-hmm.
least I have the rough draft done, which is always a relief.
Yes.
We pass that blank page
Right.
part
You
of the
actually have
process.
words to work with now
Words. I
and
have
characters.
words, lots of
Yes.
words, probably too many words.
That's okay. That's okay. I was looking at your book when it came out and how thick it was, and I'm like, oh, I think they keep getting thicker, and I'm really glad about that.
Oh, some people love a thick book, thankfully,
I do.
because yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right now, this next one's a little bit on the short side for me, but I know my editors, they're always, to their credit, they're always suggesting, oh, we want more about this
Mm-hmm.
character, we develop this, relationship a little
Mm-hmm.
more. Can we have some more we really like this minor character. Can you do more with that? We need more romance build up before, this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're always
Right.
asking, occasionally they'll ask me to trim something and make something
Okay.
faster,
Yeah.
especially the beginnings often. But mostly I end up adding 10, 12,000
Okay.
words in the
In the
revision
revisions. Yeah. That's
rewrite
great.
period. So
That's great. So, people who love Regency are definitely going to love this book, but they can also get the first book too. Um, and I always ask authors this, but I actually know the answer to this one because I usually ask, can you read them separately or do you have to read them in order? And I would, as a reader, say you have to read these in order.
I would have said that as well, though. It's been interesting, as authors, our we have the same publisher, and they often
Right.
hire, someone to do a blog tour or a book tour
Hmm.
or an Instagram tour. And so there were all these people reading who were given book 2 to promote on Instagram. And so many of them said in their reviews, "Oh, I love the book. I didn't even realize it was part of the series until I got to the last page and saw the promotion for
Oh
the next."
no.
And they thought it read just fine. I'm like,
Okay.
it is I'm glad, but yes,
Yeah.
do think it
Yeah.
would be best to read them
Yeah.
in order, but
Yeah, I guess I could see how you could read it out of order because you write the characters strong enough where you don't have to know what happened in book one.
I hope so. But I also don't like, myself, as my own personal thing, I don't like when you start a book and it's a lot of rehash. You have to do a little bit of
Right.
reminding just for
Yeah.
the readers who've even read it, a
Right.
little bit of reminder of who's who and what's gone before. But I thought I was fairly um, light on some of that,
Yeah.
explaining the past, hoping it would become clear in context, or that,
Hmm.
readers
Hmm.
would remember. And so I don't feel like I went back into a lot of rehash. So I'm impressed that readers could follow it as well as they apparently did, even if they
Yeah,
hadn't
that's
read
great.
book 1. So,
That's great. Well, A Winter by the Sea is available now. So anybody listening to this podcast better go get it and get the first one too. Because why not? 2 books to read right over Christmas. I say yes. Do it.
well, of course, I like that idea
Right.
as well, Jamie.
Yes. Oh man. So if readers want to find out more about you and your books, if they don't already know, since you are sort of, the queen of the inspirational Regency. Can you tell I'm fangirling a little bit? I'm just over here going, I'm gonna make a fool of myself. I'm making a fool of
Jamie,
myself.
you
Anyway,
should know. I am just, I have to, I get a little, when people, especially most people don't care, or aren't that impressed with me. But if you're a reader, you occasionally as an author, you run across somebody who's
yeah.
impressed. And it's like, I am a mom, I am a wife, I am a procrastinator, my house is a wreck. I am just so human that
Yeah,
it makes me feel a little weird
I
when
know.
people,
That's I'm trying not to make a big deal about it, but
but yeah.
you
So
know,
don't be
when you
impressed
meet
with me is what I'm saying.
well, okay. Well, I'll be impressed with your books. How's that?
Yes. And
Okay.
this is my lifelong dream come true.
Yeah.
And I'm just really grateful.
Yeah.
Everything in my life is not perfect by any stretch, but
Right.
this is a dream that God has allowed to come true. And I'm
Yeah.
super thankful I get to keep doing it. Hopefully my
Yeah.
brains will continue to work for
Yes,
years to
please.
come.
Please, Lord, to give her lots of brains. Lots of
Yes,
brains would be
all the
great.
brains.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing with your books that I really enjoy too with the Regency is the quiet faith because it was prior to like that overtly evangelical dispensationalist movement of the 1800s and such when D.L. Moody started getting up and a tent revival started. So it feels like I think back in those days like faith was just integrated into life. It was very organic but very real.
Right. And I know it, and I'm sure you know this too as an author. It's always such a balance. You want to glorify God and have
Right.
there be, sincere hope and sincere faith. But yeah, not in a way that's super preachy or doesn't
Hmm.
feel right to the time period. And I'm sure you're aware Jane Austen herself was a very strong Christian, but
Hmm.
there's very little of that in her books.
Right.
But she wrote some beautiful prayers. We know she was a very
Hmm.
strong believer. But yeah, it wasn't something she spent a lot of time writing about, because I think it was so much more common for people in general to
Hmm.
go to church and have family
Right.
prayers and have the vicar to dine. And
Right.
so I don't think that she felt the need to talk about it. It was more of a
Yeah.
private part of life.
Of course, now after you say that, I'm tempted to send my pastor an email that says, "We would like to invite the vicar to dine with us on Friday evening."
I'm sure he would love it.
He'd be like, "Jamie, what's going on? Are you okay?"
Wish you make excellent boiled potatoes, and I don't know,
Oh,
whatever
these
else.
potatoes are just
Mr.
lovely.
Collins
Lovely potatoes. Yes, Mr.
liked
Collins.
when he came over for dinner. So,
Yes, I love it. Well, Julie, thank you so much for being here. Readers can find you at julieklassen.com
or Facebook.
or
I know you're
Facebook.
on Inspirational Regency Readers occasionally,
Yes.
that Facebook group where I hang out with Erica Vetch and Michelle
Hmm.
Griep, two other
Hmm.
writers who love England. And I spend a lot of time there. So if you
Yeah,
really want to find me, or
that's the
Erica
place to
or
go.
Michelle,
You're right.
come and find us.
Yes.
on Facebook.
It's a great one. I like that one. In fact, Erica or somebody posted today this picture of this snowy English cottage, and I have to complain because I got distracted from my own writing because I was staring at it, and then my brain started going through the different rooms in the house. Like it just instantly started imagining
Oh,
what they
okay.
looked like, and it was very wrong of you guys to be so distracting. Just saying.
Well, hey, you live in the snowy north. I'm sure you have your own
Well, yeah,
cozy
but it's not a
place.
stone cottage
That's
in
true.
England.
That's true. Yeah, I'm the same way. I do think there's, well, England's one of my favorite places on earth,
Yeah, it's
besides
beautiful.
our own country, of course.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I love it too.
Good. All right. Well, I will let you get back because you have another book to write because I'm putting you on deadline because we need this next book. So,
All right, I'm
all
at it.
right. Thank you so
All
much,
right, thanks.
Julie.
Good to talk to you, Jamie. Bye.